Welcome to the Seven Figure CEO podcast, where we talk all things marketing strategies, business systems, personal development insights, and conduct interviews with successful CEOs and entrepreneurs. Learn the exact strategies on how seven-figure CEOs market and scale their companies with your host, Chris Rodriguez. Welcome to the Seven Figure CEO podcast, and today we have Master Josh Arcemont, owner of Hero Martial Arts. He's a 6th degree black belt in Taekwondo, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt, MAIA's newest consultant, and he's getting ready to open up his second location. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris. I've been watching the show for a while. I'm excited to be on it now. Finally get to talk with you and catch up.
Exactly. So, obviously we know each other because you're a GrowPro client. You're also a MAIA and CMA client. Now you're on the team with the consultant team. And, I've been just following you on social media for a while. I think you have an amazing social media presence and a lot of fun energy to bring. So why don't we just kind of kick it off for our listeners and tell us a little bit about Heroes Martial Arts, right? Like how long you've been in business, how to get started, kind of just the pitch for us.
Yeah, the Reader's Digest version. I'll kind of give you that. So, started back in 1987, did karate for about a year, moved around a little bit. 1993, moved to a small town. And in that small town, there was a Kung Fu school and a Taekwondo school. I wanted to do Kung Fu because Bruce Lee did Kung Fu, but I ended up going to a Taekwondo school because a friend of mine in school saw me reading a Bruce Lee book, and so it was kind of like a referral. He brought me to the school. One thing led to another. I enrolled. My mom ended up marrying my instructor when I was in high school, so it became a family business. Yeah, crazy, right?
I guess he didn't have a dating policy in the employee's handbook.
Yeah. It worked out. It was one of those things where God kind of just like put me in that spot for a reason, I believe. And it changed my entire life, so it became a family business. I already loved martial arts. And so when I graduated high school, I was kind of like, what am I going to do? And, I kind of put this together like, hey, I love working with kids. I kind of want to be a PE teacher, maybe a counselor. I was thinking of a counselor. So I was like, hey, you put all that together, martial arts instructor, and I get to teach martial arts, and, had no clue about the business side or wasn't even thinking about money or how to make a living. I just want to do martial arts. I want to teach. I want to help. So did that for 15 years at my family school. And through that time, learned a ton. I did a ton. I basically grew up. Basically, the only job I ever had was teaching martial arts.
That's so
and
cool.
Then, 12 years ago, opened my own academy, Hero Martial Arts Academy. And we've been on that roller coaster ride for the past 12 years. It's been a blast. And last week, we just signed the lease for our second location. So, always growing, always moving forward. And I'm excited, it's definitely a new phase for us right now. But it's something we've had our eyes on for a long time.
So how did the name Heroes come about? I think it's one of the coolest names in the industry. How'd you pick it?
It took a while. The name of my family's martial arts school was a long name. It was Southeast Texas Taekwondo Academy. So every time I answered the phone, I was, I had to take a breath. Southeast Texas Taekwondo Academy, right? So for 15 years, I was like, oh my God, we need a shorter name. And it was funny because we'd have kids train with us for 3 years. And at the end, get black belt. And I would ask them like, hey, what's the name of our school? And they would say, Taekwondo. I'm like, they didn't even remember the name of the school. It was such a long name. So I said, I want one word. I just want one word. So I was thinking, what's the best word? I was thinking about, icon or maybe elite. And I was kind of thinking about all these names, but they all seem kind of like, I don't know, egotistical in a way. So in my mind, it just popped up one day. It just said hero. I was like, what are we trying to do as martial artists? Who are we trying to be? Who are we trying to produce? And it just popped in my head. I was in Colorado, actually hiking in Colorado, and the word came in my head, hero. And I was like, that's it, hero. And there's no negative connotation to the word. As soon as you hear it, you always have a positive, there's a positive relationship with that word. So Now I just pick up the phone, Hero Martial Arts Academy.
I love it. And amazing branding as well that goes along with it. So, we're here 2022 and I'm in Florida, which, we didn't get nearly hit as hard with COVID. We got shut down in March. We were back open in June of 2020. But, I talk with clients in California that are still doing outside classes and people still don't feel comfortable coming in indoors with masks and stuff like that. So, I know it was 2 years ago, but I think we've all can still feel some of the effects, and definitely the lessons are front and center. How was Heroes affected by COVID? And if you kind of had to sum up your game plan as the leader and, taking your team through that, what was it?
Well, we're in Texas, so I think Texas and Florida are pretty similar. I think we're parallel there. I mean, we were shut down for like 3 months. However, we did Zoom for like a year and a half, I think, total. But, it's funny. I don't think I ever told you the story, but I was on vacation in Big Bend, which is West Texas. It's like 12-hour drive, West Texas, kind of in the middle of nowhere when all of this hit. And so we got word, I'm kind of like in this cabin where we're, on vacation. We got word the world's coming to an end, and we got to shut down our business, this and that. And there was a 2-day trip I had on the way home. So on the way home, I'm kind of scanning through Facebook. I'm like, what are we going to do? I actually came across your page and watched your video on how to set up a Zoom call. And so we stopped in this small town. My family went shopping. I think they were getting toilet paper at the time or whatever they were stocking up. And I'm watching this video. So I'm on Amazon clicking things I need to buy and so forth. And I set up this game plan. We get back the very next day. I tell my team, here's what we're going to do. There's this thing called Zoom. I had no idea what that was, but we made it work. And so that Monday we hit the ground running and just started doing classes and kind of built it out from there. And the game plan was do whatever it takes, just do whatever it takes to stay open. And, it's funny. I learned a lot about myself during that time. I learned that when my back's against the wall, I fight a lot harder. I kind of woke up every day on a mission and I liked it. Sure. So, that was interesting what I found. I mean, I didn't like the situation. Obviously it was stressful, but I did like the way it made me feel. And that's part of the reason why I push myself now to go to the next level is like, I think I need that fight. I think you know what I mean.
I do, and I think for some school owners, you're obviously an action taker. I think speed of implementation is, what separates the good from the great. And if you didn't have this skill, you learned this skill. And I know personal development is really important to you. Can you talk a little bit about who are some of the people that you followed in regards to personal development, your mentors that have helped you kind of develop these skills that helped you get through COVID?
So I tell this story, a true story. I graduated high school in 1996. That's the same year I got my black belt. And I tested with a gentleman who was much, much older than me at the time. I think he's my age now then. He was my age then. But I looked up to him. He was actually an attorney and well-respected. And he gave me a graduation gift. And it was a box. And I opened up the box and there were 16 cassette tapes in there. And I'm like, what am I going to do with these cassette tapes? And I looked and it said Les Brown. And I'm like, oh, okay, motivational speaker. I'm like, okay. So I close it, put it in my trunk. I don't look at it for like 3 or 4 months. And then one day I'm on a road trip. I think I'm going to a tournament or something. And I pop in the tape and I'm like, what in the world? This is, I'm turning it up, taking notes in my mind. I'm like, where has this been my whole life? And the reality was, it was in my trunk for 3 months, like it was there, but I didn't use it. But I fell in love with motivational speakers and kind of went down the pathway of Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and, buying the CDs in the late 90s and early 2000s and just absorbing all that information. And that's really kind of led me on this journey of, the always growing, always learning and that success journey. And it just keeps me motivated,
I love it. Definitely a huge part of my life as well. Jim Rohn was introduced to me when I was in college and, completely just changed the path that I was on. One thing I kind of want to touch on, we're talking about personal development and developing skills. And I think for some martial arts schools, once they reach a certain level of success, they're what are your other options? For some, it's just, okay, I'm going to open a second location or a third location. I know you've found success in the real estate, kind of venue. Can you kind of talk about how you got introduced to real estate? And are you doing commercial? Are you doing residential? Because this is a big topic that we talk about in MAIA with Mr. Silverman's program, MAIA Wealth. And you see in these Facebook groups all the time questions about what should my schedule be? What should my pricing options be? How do I run these mass intros? But once you get to a certain level, you got to be asking different types of questions. So can you kind of just talk a little bit about your real estate endeavors?
Yeah, I kind of fell into it. It's kind of like is similar to falling into this business of martial arts. It's the people you meet along the way, the road of life. I started teaching this little boy. He was a 3-year-old kid. His dad was like, "Will you please teach him? I'll do we'll pay for private lessons." So I started teaching this kid. And then the dad was like, "Hey, can you teach me?" So I started working with him. And it turns out he was like one of the top brokers in the Houston area. And so I started talking to him about, our location, and we were really running out of parking space. So like the school's big, we've got 5,600 square feet, but the parking was kind of limited at the time. So he's like, "Well, let me talk to the owner and we'll see if we can get some parking put in." And one thing led to another. And we put an offer on the building itself, which was at the time, I think we had 8 tenants in that building. So we put the offer in the building, and it came back, here's how much money we need down. They're willing to sell. I didn't have that much money at the time. It was like $400,000. So we got a group of investors together, and we went in on the deal. And that kind of started the pathway to like, oh, this could be a good investment, a way to park your money into something, and a way to deploy your money to get money back. And it's been a great thing. So that's kind of been our big investment. And then I've gone into other smaller, I've put money into other bigger deals with a smaller percentage, multifamily, so apartment complexes. So that's cool because it just provides, like I said, you're going to accumulate money, and it's like, okay, now what do I do with this? How do I deploy this money? My goal is to have financial freedom and to, be able to get to a point where I don't really have to worry about, having a job to make an income, but have that money work for me.
Yeah, one of the things that we always talk about in MAIA and MAIA Wealth is your network equals your net worth. And, as your story shows, that is absolutely true. Very
so
cool.
True.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit because I love marketing. I've got a marketing company, and marketing isn't necessarily like we don't open up our martial arts schools because we want to learn marketing or we want to do ads or we want to do social media posts or even do we want to go and put rack cards out or road signs and things like that. But I know for you found a lot of success in terms of partners in education. And it's one of the things you've really knocked out of the park as one of your main forms of marketing. Can you kind of talk about, how those relationships got started and what do you guys currently do at Hero to, just really leverage that partnership in education?
Yeah. So my first experience teaching, I was just graduating high school. My stepdad was like, "Hey, this school district that's beside us, they're having this disciplinary crisis." The principal reached out and was like, "Hey, can you guys come in and work with these kids after school? We'll pay you some money, but these kids need something to do after school. They're getting into fights." And we're talking about elementary school kids. Wow. They're bringing razors to school and cutting the teachers. It was on the news. And me and him were like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's go in. We're going to be like, whip these kids into shape." And so we accepted the challenge. So my very first class was, we were in a gymnasium, an elementary school gymnasium. There's 50 kids, right? My instructor's there. There's some parents in the back. And of course, like a lot of people have similar stories. My instructor's like, "Hey, I'm going to go talk to the parents, warm them up. I'll be right back." Of course,
good luck.
Didn't come back. I taught the entire class. But that was my very first class that I taught. And it's like in martial arts, the first lesson you learn is the hardest thing to forget. The first style that you get, that you start with is like, that's going to be your style for life. You're going to go back to that no matter what, even when you're exhausted. And so for me, teaching in a elementary school, in a gymnasium, that's like home. So that's how I started teaching. And we ran that program for a few years. I was still in communication with a lot of the kids that were, and now they're in their 30s, but they were kids at the time. And heck, I was just a kid, 18 years old. Yeah. But that's how we started that. And then kind of organically it went to, hey, we can come in and we can teach PE for a day, and so we started doing that. But listen, back then it was all like old school. We just put on our gear and sparred, and we're kind of like, drill instructors with the kids, yelling at them and kind of whipping them into shape. And then we stumbled across MAIA at some point in the early or mid 2000s and kind of learned a better way to make the presentation. And that's when things really took off for us. And there's a whole system behind, Partners in Education. But I kind of parlayed all that knowledge to, when I opened my school, to do the same deal here in Klein, Texas, where I live. And Partners in Education, we're connected with over 15 schools in the Klein School District. Oh, there's a lot, but I made an oath that like anytime a school reaches out and wants us to help, I'm going to say yes every time. I'm just going to do that because that comes from a place of me wanting to help. And, there's a lot of schools surrounding us that a lot of our students come from. It's about 56% of our students come from working with the schools. They heard about us because we went to their school and did something, at their school, usually a school presentation. But some of these schools I go to, Chris, they're in the rougher neighborhoods too. They'll ask us to come out. They're like, no one comes out here. Everyone goes to the more affluent side of town, but no one visits the school on the other side of the railroad track. So I'll go out there, and I tell you, I get it's the most rewarding, type of school talk to do, because you're working with kids who, their world is just as big as their neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like they'll come up to me like, we live right next to Galveston, an hour away, the beach. I've never been to the beach. My brother's on drugs. My dad's in prison. What should I do? And they're coming up to you after this 45-minute school talk, asking for advice. And you've got like a minute to give them something, but, anyway, that's super rewarding for me. And it comes from a place of really wanting to give back and help.
I love it. Filling up your karma bucket for sure. When you say school talks, we hear as consultants, oh, there's no way I can get in the school. And I'm not going to even touch that, because there are ways for you to get in the school. But oftentimes school owners are curious, what does that look like? What is a school talk presentation? If you just kind of had to give an elevator pitch, are you asking the school kind of what topics? Are you providing them different topics? And what does the structure of a school talk look like for you typically?
Yeah, we'll usually provide different topics that, they can choose from. But a lot of the times they'll bring us in at a particular time of the year, whether it be Red Ribbon Week or Career Day or getting ready for like a big test, or they're just having a problem and they want us to talk about bullying. So a lot of times they'll provide us with a topic. So sometimes they'll do that, but it's all character education, and so my goal is when I come into the schools, I want to prove to all the teachers that this is a benefit for them and for their kids, because I think there may be some, misconceptions about martial arts. I don't want my kids fighting and punching and kicking in the hallway. So my whole thing is when I come in, I want to anchor those students. I want to get them standing up, saying, yes, sir, bowing in, turning left, turning right, moving on command within the first 3 minutes. And I want those teachers to look up from whatever they're doing to watch and be like, wow. So that's the main, I guess, point to the school talks is point for the teacher's standpoint is to get them like, wow, this is good. We need this in our schools. So that's what we do. We come in, we anchor the students, and then I do a basic warm up with everybody, just something really simple. And I always give a nod to the PE teachers, because I'll say something like, man, you guys must have the best PE teachers, because you guys sure know how to do good jumping jacks and push-ups. And of course, the teachers love that. And then I'll sit the kids down. Yeah, exactly. I'll sit the kids down and kind of just talk about what is the difference between martial arts versus fighting, self-defense versus fighting, why we're not going to punch and kick in the hallway, and kind of make sure they understand all that. Then we'll stand the kids up and they'll run through some punches and kicks, get them excited with all of that. And then at the end, we talk about building confidence, whatever theme they want me to talk about, it'll always kind of like roll into confidence. Tie that into because I believe that's kind of why everybody starts martial arts. They may say they want to lose weight or get in shape, or, they may have a bully or they want to learn self-defense, but really they just want confidence. So we talk about how do we build that? And we build it by having people around us who push us out of our comfort zone. And I'd say that's my job as an instructor, is to push you out of your comfort zone. So, even on your first class, what we do is we have you guys break a board, because why? Because that represents two things that'll hold you back: fear and frustration. You're going to be afraid. You may be frustrated even if you hit it and it doesn't break. So I pull out a board. Everyone's, oh my God, I got to break a board.
Do you knock on it? Like, guys, this is hard.
Yeah, tap on it, clank it on my head, maybe, I don't know. And just, get everybody, it's a real board, and then I'll pick a kid from the crowd who's maybe, I look at them and I say, this kid needs it. I can tell their self-esteem's low. They probably never get picked to do anything. And I'll usually bring that kid to the front to break the board in front of everybody. And that's just a cool moment for them. They become the rock star for the day. I'll usually tell them like our process. I don't know how far you want me to go into the process, but
I love it. No, yeah, let's do it. This is great.
Yeah.
I think any school owner listening right now is sitting there taking notes, and I can see you come alive when you're explaining this.
Yeah, it's funny. I can hear myself. I've talked about this on the phone here recently with a few people, and every time I go over this, I'm just like, I get goosebumps talking about it.
That's awesome.
So I bring the kid up, and then I'll tell the kid, I'll be like, listen, if you break this board today, we got a special class on Saturday. If you break it, you're invited to the class. I've got a couple passes. You can hand these out to any two friends that you want. Who would you like to bring? And of course, all the kids are bring me. So now I'm taking this kid who obviously needed self-esteem. He's not the most popular kid in class, or she isn't. And now I'm giving him that power of like, oh, I pick you, which is really powerful. And then I show him how to break it. Usually we do a hammer fist, but right before he breaks it, I kind of stop. I say, wait, I got a better idea. If you break this board right now in front of everybody, I'll make a deal. Everybody gets a pass to come in this Saturday. And then, without doubt, all the kids are, wow, they're blowing up. It's loud. We're cheering. And we scoot everybody in. Everybody's chanting and cheering for this kid. And of course, they break the board. We make sure that they're going to break it. And this kid's a hero, no pun. I mean, literally a hero for the day. Sign the board, take a picture. Everybody gets a pass. But then I kind of tell them, I was like, listen, I'm going to give you guys this pass. We get a free class this Saturday. If you come, I'm going to have a board for everybody. I'll buy the board.
Awesome.
Right? Is that a good deal? Yes, sir. If you break the board, you get your white belt. Is that a good deal? Yes, sir. I said, I only got one more thing I ask. If you're going to do this, you got to do me a favor. You got to earn it. Okay. You guys want to know what you need to do? They're like, yeah. What do we have to do? I was like, you got to go home and you have to clean and they all know the answer. They say room. Yes. I'm like, yep. You got to clean your room, guys. I'm like, listen, if you can't clean your room, you can't earn a black belt, and you're not even going to earn a white belt. So we just talk about how you have to earn stuff. And, so then the kids go home, they're pumped. They're excited. They got this pass. They're cleaning their room. And I usually tell them, like, don't tell mom anything. Just go clean it first and then go ask if you can come on Saturday. You know what I mean? Like, you got to make sure you do something for mom and dad before you ask, because you're always asking for stuff. You got to do something for them first. So, I get phone calls sometimes. I'll get messages on the answer machine as I come back. And this one message sticks out. This parent was like, on the answer machine, it was a lady. She goes, she started off the message by saying, I don't know what you told my kid. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this could be bad. She's like, but I got a new kid at my house. She went in, she cleaned her room. She's doing the dishes. I don't know what you told her, but we're coming in. We're coming in for this class. So
that is genius.
That's the process.
Because I think that some schools struggle with, well, the parents aren't at the school, so they can't see the value of me coming in and doing the school talk. And you built that into the process so the parents can immediately see it.
Yeah.
Amazing share. We won't charge anybody for listening to that. That one's for free. That was awesome.
And there's more to it.
Yeah. Of course. Yes. And if you're a MAIA client, you'll probably learn it.
Absolutely.
I would think in the future,
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So
for sure.
I know that, Partners in Education is one of your main, marketing strategies. I always ask this question because if you go in the Facebook groups online, scroll down for a little bit, somebody's asking, what offer should I do right now? And I truly believe you can make any of the offers work. You've just got to make them work for you, whether that's free, whether that's paid. But I always like asking our guests, what's your typical bread and butter offer to get people into the school?
So right now, if you go to our website, it's just a free class. You can come in, take a free class. Just come on in, no barrier. You want to take a class, come take a class. It's free. And so that's the first thing that we offer. Of course, we'll put out different trial programs throughout the year. You know, for instance, like a summer trial program or a back to school program. And we'll put that out there and advertise that with you guys will help us do that. So if they call and they went to our website or they just want information, we'll usually try to get them in for the free class. If they already got information about one of the trials, then of course we'll honor that. But the cool part about that is if they come in for that free class and they like the class, they can sign up right away, which is great. Exactly. If they're not sure, then we can always roll them over to the trial, whatever trial we have going on. And then we have an extended amount of time to then convert them to a regular student.
I love it. That's what we do. We do a free intro, and we're going to, try to enroll them on a 12-month. If there's any pushback or hesitation, then we just downsell the trial. And now we have a 2-week, 4-week period to convert them. So great minds. I like it. Now, we also have, something in common to where we both started in Taekwondo. I stopped training as a 3rd degree black belt. I actually, unfortunately, had a falling out with the Taekwondo school. And it was because I fell in love with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and I wanted to implement more Jiu Jitsu into the curriculum. We spent a lot of time on forms. I mean, a lot of time on forms. Yep. And when my students would say, Miss Rodriguez, what does this do in a fight? And I didn't really have an answer for them. I'm like, hey, it looks cool. It's part of the form. And I really wanted to be able to teach my students a different level of self-defense in regards to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And, at first when I started learning Jiu Jitsu, I hated it. And then I actually started learning and had some capabilities. And it's like, man, I can choke people out and not get in trouble. So I ended up kind of shifting paths and focusing more on BJJ. I know that you started in Taekwondo and now you're a brown belt in BJJ. Can you just kind of talk about, how'd you get introduced to it? And I believe you guys run some BJJ classes at Hero as well. Just kind of talk to me about your jiu-jitsu journey. I'm curious.
Yeah. So 93 is when I started Taekwondo. A year after that, a friend in school was like, hey, you got to go to this. There's this place that sells this, you can rent movies. And if you go in this back room, there's this video called Ultimate Fighting Championship. And so I had to drive to the other side of town. I got this video, me and my friends, we all got around a TV and we're watching this thing and we were hooked right away, and of course, Hoist Gracie, Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm opening the black belt magazines at the time, 1993, there's no jiu-jitsu schools. I mean, it's just hitting the ground, I think in California at that time. So in a small town in Texas.
If it's anywhere, it's in a garage somewhere.
Yeah. So there was nothing, but in the back of this magazine, I think it was, I forget, Henner's dad, I forget his name. Anyway, Henner Gracie's dad was selling some videotapes for like $100. You could buy this, cassette tapes. So I bought the tapes. There were 4 moves on the tape. It was like armbar, kimura, and like some basic moves, but that's all I needed. So I practiced and me and my friends would get together and we'd roll around. So that's kind of how the initial interest started, and I was like, I got to learn how to do this mixed martial arts. This is so cool. But again, it was our family business. Taekwondo was kind of the main theme. So it kind of, that took a back seat. And then when I opened my own school is when I decided, hey, I'm going to go down this road. And I, met Ricardo Laborio through that process throughout the years. Of course, he at the time was one of the head trainers and co-founder, co-owner of American Top Team, had him out for seminars and one thing led to another. And I got introduced to a guy who actually was a part of the Brazilian Top Team in Brazil. And he moved to the United States. He married my wife's best friend. And so he started teaching at our school. So that was pretty cool because the lineage was there too. And I've been doing that for about the past 6 years. Been a lot of fun. Being like it's something new. And for a long time, especially in my own school, I was like the best at, everything, right? Sparring. I've been there the longest. I'm the teacher. No one can beat me. But in jiu-jitsu, it's not going to be that way. You're not going to come in and just be the best and still not the best. But it's been a humbling experience. And I love that. I love that feeling of being a student again. I think that's important. For a long time, I was just a teacher. But, now that I'm a student, I can kind of relate to my students more.
Absolutely. I love it. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what the next level is for Josh Arcemont, for Heroes. What do you think is the next level for the company, for your team, and for yourself?
Well, next level, continue to grow. I love, Grow Pro. I'm looking at the sign in the back. I'm like, two things in life. You got to grow and you got to contribute. So that's it. That's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to grow. And through growth, we're going to be able to contribute and give back even more. I have a comfortable life. I mean, I like where I'm at. And I'm not necessarily growing just for me. I look at my staff. I look at my team. I look at the years they put into, this project we call Hero Martial Arts Academy. And they're not kids anymore. Many of them have kids and they're married and they need more. I need to provide them with more. So opening the second school is a way to do that. We've built a great team and we're ready to expand. So when I think about the future, those are the kind of things I think about. And, jumping on board with MAIA and becoming a consultant with MAIA was something that I had to pause and think about for a while. I was like, do I want another job? Do I want more responsibility? Is this going to take me away from my main goal, which is to grow this company that I have, Hero? But I thought about it and I said, you know what, my ultimate goal in life is to leave a legacy and is to give back. I'm a teacher by nature. I love to, motivate people and inspire people, teach, whether it's martial arts, whether it's business or in life. So that's now part of my, when I think about the future and what it holds and what I want is helping the industry to grow and become better, So that's what I think about, growth and contribution.
I love that. Love the growth and contribution. For me, when I decided to start, teaching other school owners, and it literally started with an online course that I put out called the Perfect Kids Jiu Jitsu Class Course. It was about my ripple effect. Me personally, multiple locations wasn't something that, when I'm writing my goals down in my journal that, it wasn't even on the list. And, as our team has grown and my school really, can run itself because of those rock star team members, those other locations have to be on my radar so that I can provide them more opportunities, which is exactly, what you're doing. But from the consultant aspect, it was like, man, I can only serve X amount of people in Tampa within an X a mile radius. But if I'm helping other martial arts schools grow their schools, that ripple effect just gets wider and wider and wider. So for me, that was, very similar, about leaving a legacy. So really pumped to have you on the team, some new energy brought because, 2019, I was, technically the last person on the team, and that was back in 2019. So here we are, 2022, and our team continues to grow, which is awesome. So, typical question that we, get asked as entrepreneurs, if you were able to start it all over again, right? What's the one thing that you would do differently?
Well, hindsight, being 2020 and knowing what I know now, and seeing how much I've learned and grown, and I thought I knew a lot back then. I was 32. I thought I knew a lot back then. And I guess I did have a head start because I did, I worked at a martial arts school and we were already a part of MAIA, in 2005 for like 5 or 6 years. And when I went off on my own and I did my own thing, I said, hey, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to take everything I've learned from MAIA and I'm going to apply what I want and kind of tinker with some things and do whatever else I want. I've done it all, from contracts, no contracts, and programs to memberships to, after school, summer camp. We've done it all. So now that I think back to what would I do different, I think I would pick a system and just implement that system and not try to be creative in my business. As funny as that sounds, I think creativity is great. I think as a martial artist, we love to be creative. I think, when I'm out there and I'm sparring or I'm doing a demonstration, I get to express myself through that creativity. And we tend to want to do that in our business too. But I got that out of my system. Now I just want best practice. What works, what's efficient, and where can I cut corners and save time? So, it may be a kind of a cliche, and I know a lot of people say that, but I really believe, I really mean it, that I would join a consulting program that I thought matched my core values and where I wanted to go. And I would follow what they told me to a T. I mean, that's just would have saved me a whole lot of time had I done that back then.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I know as consultants, you know, we give the recipe per se to make chocolate chip cookies, and then, you know, school owners end up with, you know, oatmeal raisin, and they're scratching their head. It's like, because you changed the recipe. Yeah. Do what the consultant says. And, you know, one of my next questions, and I think you already, you know, asked it, but, you know, how would you choose a consulting company? And what I love that you said was that, are their values in line? And I think that is so important, because there are quite a few different consulting companies out there in our industry. They absolutely can get people results, right? You see it in their testimonials, but are the values in line? And I know that was big for me. And one of the main reasons I came on board with MAIA, because my values were in line with Mr. Silverman and Mr. Metzger, who were the, you know, first two people that I met. Mm-hmm. Just to kind of wrap it up here, any additional nuggets of wisdom, insight that you'd like to share with, you know, our listeners who are predominantly martial arts school owners and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I would, you know, I would say, we're kind of going back to the growth and contribution side of things, is to constantly be asking yourself, where am I headed next? And think long-term, you know, think 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. What do you want your life to be like when you're 50? If you're already 50, what about 60? What are you working towards? Because we can get so bogged down and busy doing the work and doing this and doing that, that we kind of lose sight of what our purpose is, what our ultimate goal is. And when you have that in your mind, you basically have a compass that points north at all times. And so when you know that, when you ever get to a point in life, like I've been in many times, where it's like, I have a decision to make, should I do this or should I do that? I just refer back to that compass, so to speak, right? Those goals, and where is my true north? Where am I headed? And it always gives me the right answer. So focus on what those are, write those down, and then every year update those goals, because those may change a little bit. North may change as you change, and you know, your priorities and needs change. I know what I wanted when I was 32 is different than what I wanted now that I'm 44. It's funny though, I wrote these down. I had a piece of paper laying around, but I found an old notebook from like 15 years ago. I wrote down my goals. Wow. There's a list of 20 things. Out of those 20 things, 18 of them came true. Just because I wrote the goals down. Yeah. And the other two are some silly things, like I wanted jet skis or something, like, you know, something silly. But at that time I thought that was cool. But yeah, I mean, everything else came true. So I think there's real power in writing down those goals, and then referring back to them, you know, every year, every so often, to make sure you're headed in the right direction.
Great share. Big fan of journaling, writing down the goals as if they've already been accomplished. Congratulations on hitting 18 out of the 20.
Thank you. Yeah.
For me, the biggest takeaway, you know, we hear a lot about this mindset of growth, but I love it. What I love is what you added onto that, which is the contribution, right? It's like, I don't want, you know, I want everybody eating at the table. I don't want to be the only one eating at the table. So Great share. Josh, thank you so much for your time. If our listeners want to connect in any way, what's kind of the best way to do that with you?
I'm on Facebook. You guys can check me out, Josh Arcemont, Facebook. You know, you can reach out to me there. Also, I have an email. It's masterjosharcemont@gmail.com. You can always email me if you have any questions, but I'd love to connect. I'm here to help, and that's my purpose. Help the martial arts industry.
There we go. Well, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.